Let's talk about the housing market's best-kept secret. While traditional lumber prices are skyrocketing and labor costs are out of control, a quiet revolution is happening in rural America. It is called the barn dominium. It is a steel frame building on a concrete slab. On the outside, it looks like a rugged agricultural barn. On the inside, it is a luxury custom home. The math is compelling. A traditional stick-built home costs over $200 per square foot to build. A barn dominium shell can be erected for $60 to $80 per square foot. But here is the problem. Your local government hates them. Most suburban zoning boards classify these as accessory structures, meaning you can't legally live in them. Banks hate them because there are no comparable sales, so they won't give you a mortgage. If you try to build one in a strict HOA or a blue state suburb, you will be shut down before you pour the concrete. But there are loopholes. There are states where metal buildings are not just allowed, they are the standard. We scoured the zoning codes, the wind load requirements, and the lending maps to find the 10 states where you can actually build your dream steel fortress without the government shutting you down. Here are the 10 best states for barn dominium living in 2026. Number 10. Ohio. Ohio might seem like a surprising choice for number 10, given its Rust Belt reputation, but it has become a hotspot for post-frame construction. In rural Ohio, specifically counties like Knox, Holmes, or Wayne, the Amish and Mennonite communities have mastered the art of pole barn construction. This means you have access to a massive skilled labor force that specializes in exactly this type of building. You can hire a crew here to put up a 40x60 shell in a week for a fraction of what it would cost on the coasts. The flat topography makes pouring a slab foundation incredibly cheap, $6 to $8 per square foot. Zoning in the rural townships is very loose. As long as you aren't in a city limit, agricultural zoning usually permits a primary residence to be a metal structure. The catch, the moisture, and the lone gap. Ohio is humid, metal buildings sweat. If you do not invest heavily in spray foam insulation, closed cell, you will have barn-do rain condensation dripping from your ceiling every morning. Spray foam is expensive, costing $15,000 for a decent-sized unit, but it is mandatory here. Then there is the financing. Ohio banks are conservative. Many local credit unions still view these as sheds. You might need a construction-to-permanent loan with a higher down payment, 20 to 30%, because the bank fears the resale value won't hold up in a market dominated by traditional vinyl-sided colonials. Also, heating. A metal building loses heat fast. In an Ohio winter, you need radiant floor heating in that concrete slab, or your feet will be freezing for 5 months straight. Number 9. Montana. If your dream is a rugged mountain modern steel cabin, Montana is the aesthetic capital of the barn dominium world. The culture here embraces the industrial ranch look. A metal building doesn't look out of place. It looks like it belongs. Zoning in counties like Flathead or Gallatin, outside the city limits, is virtually non-existent regarding aesthetics. You can build a bright red barn and nobody cares. The dry climate is perfect for metal. You don't have the rust issues of the South or the humidity issues of the Midwest. The catch, the snow load, and the contractor premium. Montana building codes are strict about one thing: snow load. In the mountains, your roof must be engineered to hold 60, 80, or even 100 pounds per square foot of snow. This means you cannot buy a cheap barn-do kit online from Texas. You need heavy-gauge steel trusses, 14-gauge or thicker, and reinforced purlins. This doubles the cost of the steel package. Then there is the labor shortage. Everyone wants to move to Montana right now. Contractors are booked 2 years out. If you can find a builder, they charge a Yellowstone premium. Labor costs here are double what they are in the South. You also have to drill a well through granite. We talked about this in our off-grid nightmare video. A well in Montana can cost $30,000. So while the zoning is easy, the physics and economics of building here are brutal. This is a rich man's barn dominium destination. Number 8. Mississippi. We are heading back to the South for affordability. Mississippi offers perhaps the lowest price per square foot for construction in the nation. Labor is cheap, concrete is cheap, land is cheap. The regulatory environment in rural Mississippi is essentially, do you have a septic permit? Okay, go ahead. You can buy 10 acres of pine forest and drop a 2,000 square foot metal building on it, and your total all-in cost might be under $150,000. That is unheard of in 2026. Because agriculture is the main industry, living in a barn is culturally accepted. You won't have neighbors complaining about your property values. The catch: corrosion and tornadoes, humidity again. But in Mississippi, it's saltier if you are anywhere near the coast. Metal rusts. You need galvalume roofing and siding with a high-quality Kynar paint finish, or your house will look like a rusty scrap heap in 10 years. Termites don't eat steel, but they eat the wood framing inside the steel shell. You still need to treat the soil. The biggest threat is wind. Mississippi is in the heart of Dixie Alley. A large metal building has a massive wind profile. If it isn't anchored correctly into the slab with heavy-duty J-bolts, a tornado will peel it open like a sardine can. You need an engineer stamp for wind loads of 115 mph or higher, even inland. Also, resale value is tricky. In the poorest state in the Union, finding a buyer who can afford to cash you out later might be hard. You are building this for yourself, not to flip it. Number 7. Tennessee. Tennessee is the #1 state for barn dominium. Google searches for a reason. The geography is perfect for it. The rolling hills and limestone geology provide solid foundations. The state has no income tax, which leaves you more cash to put into construction. Outside of Nashville and Knoxville, counties like Maury or Bedford are barndo-friendly. There is a massive network of builders here who specialize in shell construction. They pour the slab, frame it, and sheet it, and then leave the interior to you. This is the ultimate way to save money if you are handy. The catch: the rock and the weight. Digging a foundation in Tennessee often means hitting solid limestone rock. You might budget $5,000 for excavation and end up spending $15,000 because you need a hydraulic hammer to chip out the rock for your footings and plumbing lines. Because Tennessee is so popular, the good builders have massive wait lists. We are talking 12 to 18 months just to get on the schedule. If you hire the guy who can start tomorrow, you are likely hiring a meth addict or a scammer. Construction fraud is a real issue here, with unlicensed contractors taking deposits and disappearing. You need to be very careful about vetting your builder. Also, the humidity causes sweating slabs. If you don't put a proper vapor barrier under your concrete, the floor will weep water in the spring. Number 6. Oklahoma. Oklahoma is the spiritual home of the metal building. The landscape is dotted with oil field structures and cattle barns. Zoning is non-existent in most counties. You can buy land and start building the next day. The flat terrain makes site prep incredibly cheap. You don't have to blast rock like in Tennessee or clear jungle like in Mississippi. Steel is readily available because of the industrial base in Tulsa and Oklahoma City. You save on shipping costs because the materials are often manufactured locally. The catch: the wind uplift. We aren't just talking about tornadoes. We are talking about sustained 40-50 mph prairie winds. A barn dominium is essentially a giant sail. If you leave the big bay doors open during a storm, the wind pressure can lift the roof off. You need red iron steel, heavy I-beams, rather than post-frame wood poles, in Oklahoma. Red iron is stronger but more expensive and requires a crane to erect. Insurance is the other nightmare. Oklahoma has the highest home insurance rates in the nation. Insuring a non-traditional metal home can be a battle. Many carriers will classify it as an outbuilding rather than a residence, offering lower coverage limits. You need to find an agent who specializes in barndos. And the heat. A metal roof in 105-degree Oklahoma sun radiates heat into the attic. You need a cool roof, reflective color, and massive amounts of attic ventilation, or your AC bill will bankrupt you. Number 5. Kentucky. Kentucky is the unsung hero of the barn dominium movement, primarily because of its lumber industry. While the West relies on steel, Kentucky specializes in post-frame construction using pressure-treated wood columns. In rural counties like Pulaski or Lincoln, the zoning is incredibly permissive. You can buy 10 acres of rolling pasture for $40,000 and erect a massive pole barn structure. Because the local labor force has been building tobacco barns for 2 centuries, finding a crew that understands how to frame a 60-foot truss is easy. You aren't teaching them how to do it, they are teaching you. The cost of lumber here is often lower than the national average due to local mills. You can frame a dried-in shell, roof, walls, windows, doors for as little as $50 per square foot if you act as your own general contractor. The catch: the concrete delivery and the bank appraisal. Kentucky is hilly. Beautiful, but hilly. A barn dominium requires a perfectly flat, monolithic concrete slab. Pouring 40 yards of concrete on a hillside is a logistical nightmare. Standard concrete mixer trucks cannot climb steep, gravel switchbacks without sliding off the mountain. You will likely have to hire a concrete pump truck. This is a massive truck with a boom arm that pumps the wet concrete up the hill. The rental for this beast starts at $1,200 a day, plus the operator fee. If the truck gets stuck, you are paying for the wrecker. If the concrete cures in the drum because the driver got lost in the holler, you are buying the driver a new drum, $5,000 plus. Then there is the appraisal gap. Rural Kentucky banks are conservative. They look for comparable sales, comps. If there are no other luxury metal homes within 5 miles, the appraiser will compare your custom barn dominium to a standard double-wide trailer. They might appraise your $300,000 build at $150,000. This means the bank won't lend you the full amount. You have to cover the appraisal gap in cash. If you don't have $150,000 sitting in the bank, the project dies before the first pole goes in the ground. Number 4. Missouri. Missouri is the Wild West of building codes. We have mentioned this before, but for barn dominiums, it is the critical factor. In many counties like Dallas, Lackaide, or Wright, there are 0 building codes for residential structures outside city limits. This means you do not need a framing inspection. You do not need an insulation inspection. You do not need to pay for a building permit. You buy the land, you pour the slab, you build the house. The government doesn't get involved until you ask for an address. This saves you approximately $5,000 to $10,000 in permit fees and months of bureaucratic delays. It also allows you to use non-traditional materials. Want to use reclaimed barnwood? Go ahead. Want to wire it yourself? It's your funeral, but it's legal. The catch, the resale nightmare, and the humidity. Because there are no inspections, there is no proof that the house was built correctly. When you try to sell this house in 10 years, the buyer's bank will demand an inspection. If they find that you didn't ground your electrical outlets correctly, or that your septic line doesn't have the right slope, the deal falls through. You are building a house that might be unsellable to anyone who needs a mortgage. You are limiting your future buyer pool to cash-only buyers. Then there is the physical reality of Missouri humidity. A metal building in the Ozarks is essentially a condensation machine. Warm, moist air hits the cool metal roof decking at night. It turns into water. If you use cheap bubble wrap insulation, which many kit sellers try to push on you, it will fail. The water will get trapped between the bubble wrap and the metal, rusting the panels from the inside out. You must use closed-cell spray foam, applied directly to the metal. This creates a vapor barrier. However, spray foam in Missouri costs $1.50 to $2 per board foot. For a 2,000 square foot barn dominium with 12-foot ceilings, your insulation bill alone could be $25,000. If you skip this, it will rain inside your living room. Number 3. Georgia. Georgia offers a unique blend of affordability and climate. We are looking specifically at North Georgia and the rural counties south of Atlanta. The red clay soil, once compacted, forms an incredibly stable base for a concrete slab. You don't have the shifting sands of Florida or the frost heaves of the north. Georgia has a massive supply of engineered wood products and steel manufacturing. Zoning in counties like Carroll or Haralson allows for agricultural residential use, which is the golden ticket for barn dominiums. You can build a shop plus house where you live in one half and run your business out of the other half. And the county is fine with it. The catch: the perk test and the pine trees. Before you can build, you need a septic permit. Georgia clay is dense. It holds water. A standard percolation test, measures how fast water drains into the soil. In Georgia clay, the answer is often, it doesn't. If you fail the perk test, you cannot install a standard gravity septic system. $8,000. You have to install a mound system or a drip emitter system. These require trucking in hundreds of tons of sand to build an artificial hill in your front yard to treat the sewage. The cost jumps to $25,000 or $30,000. Then there are the trees. Georgia is covered in loblolly pines. Clearing a lot here is not just cutting grass. You have to hire a forestry mulcher or a bulldozer to take down 80-foot trees. But you can't just leave the stumps. If you build a slab over buried pine stumps, the stumps will rot, the ground will collapse, and your concrete slab will crack in half. You have to grub the roots, which means digging up the soil 3 feet deep, removing all organic matter, and then bringing in clean-filled dirt to compact it. Site preparation in Georgia can easily run $20,000 to $40,000 before you even buy the steel kit. Number 2. Northern Florida. The Panhandle. You might think Florida is HOA hell, but the Panhandle counties like Washington, Jackson, or Holmes is different. This is lower Alabama. Here, the barn dominium is a status symbol. It is the preferred way to survive the climate. The reason it ranks so high is the wind rating. Steel buildings are incredibly aerodynamic and strong if engineered correctly. A red iron steel building can withstand 150 mph winds better than a wood frame house. Insurance companies in Florida love metal roofs. If you build a barndo with a hip roof design and a standing seam metal roof, you get massive discounts on your windstorm insurance. In a state where insurance is collapsing, this is a financial lifeboat. The catch: the salt air corrosion and the heat gain. If you are within 20 miles of the Gulf Coast, the salt air is an acid bath. Standard steel fastener screws will rust in 3 years. The heads will pop off, and your metal sheets will start flapping in the wind. You must use stainless steel screws with EPDM washers. These cost 5 times as much as standard screws. You must upgrade your metal siding to a Kynar 500 or Hylar 5000 resin-based coating to resist the salt. Standard polyester paint will chalk and fade in the Florida sun in 5 years. And the heat gain. A metal building is a conductor. If you build a dark gray or black barn dominium, which looks cool on Pinterest, you are building an oven. The surface temperature of a black metal roof in Florida can hit 170 degrees. You need to build with white or galvalume silver roofs to reflect the sun. You also need to install a thermal break between the steel frame and the exterior sheeting, or the heat will transfer directly into your wall studs, melting your drywall tape. Building correctly in Florida costs money. A cheap kit from a northern state will not survive here. Number 1. Texas. Texas is the undisputed king of the barn dominium. This is where the trend started. In Texas, a barndo isn't an alternative home. It is the standard for rural luxury. Because the oil and gas industry uses so much steel, there are hundreds of weld-up crews available. Unlike the bolt-up kits you buy online, where you assemble pre-punched pieces like IKEA furniture, Texas builders weld the frame on-site using red iron I-beams and square tubing. This results in a structure that is stronger, stiffer, and more custom than anything you can buy in a kit. Zoning in the unincorporated areas of Texas, which is 90% of the state, is total freedom. No permits, no inspections, no aesthetic boards. You can build a 5,000 square foot shop with a 1,000 square foot apartment inside, and your property taxes will be lower because the tax assessor often values the shop portion at a lower commercial rate than a finished residential rate. The catch: the foundation soil and the lending trap. Texas soil, especially in the hill country and Blackland Prairie, is expansive clay. It swells when wet and shrinks when dry. It moves inches every year. If you pour a standard 4-inch slab, it will crack. You need a post-tension slab. This involves running steel cables through the wet concrete and tightening them with a hydraulic jack after it cures. This compresses the concrete, making it float on the shifting soil like a raft. A post-tension slab costs significantly more than a standard slab. Think $15 to $20 per square foot. And then the lending trap. Because barndos are so popular in Texas, prices have skyrocketed. Contractors are charging $150 per square foot for turnkey builds. That is almost the same price as a stick-built home. The cheap factor is disappearing in Texas unless you DIY. Furthermore, Texas banks are getting wise. They used to lend on these easily. Now, they are requiring 20 to 30% down payments because they know that if they have to foreclose, selling a custom metal home is harder than selling a brick house. You need cash to play the game in Texas. The days of the $50,000 Texas barndo are largely gone, replaced by the $500,000 luxury steel estate. Before you buy a kit, you need to understand the difference because it changes everything about your budget and your skills. Option A. Wood post frame. Pole barn. This is wood posts buried in the ground or set on concrete brackets. Pros. It is cheaper. A single person can lift the wood posts. It is easier to finish the interior because you are nailing drywall to wood. Cons. Wood rots. If the posts are in the ground, they will eventually rot, no matter how treated they are. It shifts more in the wind. Banks like it less. Option B. Red iron steel. The real deal. This is heavy, structural steel I-beams, usually painted red oxide to prevent rust. Pros. It is invincible. Termites can't eat it. Fire can't burn it. It spans huge distances. You can have a 60-foot wide living room with no columns. It lasts 100 years. Cons. You need a crane to lift the beams. You need a professional welder to assemble it. It is much harder to finish the interior because you have to frame a house within a house, building wood walls inside the steel shell to hang drywall and run wire. This double framing adds cost. The kit scam. Be very careful buying barn dominium kits online for $30,000. Read the inclusions list. Usually that $30,000 only gets you the steel shell. It does not include the concrete slab, $20,000, the insulation, $15,000, the windows and doors, $10,000, the assembly labor, $20,000, the plumbing, electric, HVAC, $30,000, the interior framing and drywall, $40,000. A $30,000 kit is actually a $200,000 house by the time you can sleep in it. Do not buy a kit until you have quotes for the concrete and the labor. Otherwise, you will have a pile of steel sitting in a field that you can't afford to erect. Building a barn dominium is not just about saving money. It is about building a legacy. A steel home will survive storms, fires, and bugs that would destroy a wood house. But it is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It requires land, cash, and the patience to navigate zoning laws that were written for 1950s suburbs. If you can find the right county like the ones on this list, and you can manage the construction yourself, you can build a mansion for the price of a starter home. Are you team wood or team steel? Would you build in the humidity of Mississippi for the cheap prices, or pay the premium for the Texas expertise? Let me know in the comments. And if you need to find the land first, go watch our cheap land video. You can't build a castle without a kingdom. Hit subscribe, keep your powder dry, and I'll see you in the next one.